welcome to the Dream is Real podcast. This is the place if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in New York real estate. Before we get started, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. We're going to be putting out great content with great professionals in the real estate space. Today is no different. I'm with Greg Nouza of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. Welcome.
Thank you, Jason.
Glad that you are here. So tell us about you. How did you start the journey on the mortgage side of things?
I think that's always a question that no one has the same answer. We all kind of fall into it. That's my assumption.
Sure. No, you're correct.
No one goes to 4 years of college to do mortgages because that's not something you need a degree in. And then meanwhile, after college and you're stumbling around and you're like, all right, where do I go from here? The dreams that I had were to go into advertising and marketing. In fact, I had a job lined up with Young & Rubicam, which is a big ad agency.
Sure.
And I found out the hard way how tough that industry is, where I got laid off before I even started the job. They called me up Christmas Eve, said, Greg, sorry, we just lost Jell-O pudding, and we just lost you with it. So
wow. On Christmas Eve?
On Christmas Eve.
Couldn't even wait till the 26th to give you a call, let you enjoy your Christmas? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
But it's cool. You know, it's
right.
cool. Like everything works out for a reason.
I agree.
If that worked out, I wouldn't be on your podcast.
Sure, that's very true. We wouldn't be here today.
Right. So I ended up just taking what I thought was kind of a schlocky job, selling leads to real estate agents and mortgage professionals. And eventually I got recruited by a company called AmeriQuest, which was big back in like the early 2000s. You saw them on a lot of like NASCAR billboards. Sure. And so that's where I just got scooped up. They knew I knew some stuff about the industry, and from there, I just stuck with it. That was like, early 2000s.
Was there anything about the industry itself that hooked you, that said, hey, I want to do this long term, or was that kind of a slow grow as well?
That's a good question. I remember my first day on my job, they sat me in front of a TV with a VHS, if I'm dating myself, and in popped this video where it started teaching me about mortgages. 20 minutes later, I'm on the phone. Some of the leads I called were even like my friends' parents from school growing up, where I'm like, hey, do you want to refinance? They're like, yeah, sure. What's your rate? I'm like, shoot, like what's a rate? Like I didn't know anything.
Right.
I knew everything from Monopoly. That was it. So it wasn't really a career I pursued. It was something more where I needed a job, and it seemed like something that could be a career. And I just kind of said, hey, let me try it out.
Is there anything in particular that you love about the industry?
I love everything about the industry. I mean, it definitely has its bad days, just like any job. But I think the idea of helping people is attractive. You know, you're a life changer, you and I, with what we do. And, I think the numbers are fun, but the fact that every day is different, and it's not so much a number job, it's a people job.
Sure.
You have to learn what the next step is before it even happens in my job. So it's a lot of like chess moves, trying to figure out, all right, how do we get this appraisal to work, even though we know that something might be wrong with it. There's so many different ways that comes out, but we're problem solvers, and that's like really fun because it's a challenge, and you get better at it over time. Tell me I'm wrong. Like we learn by things going wrong, and then the next time it happens, we don't do it again.
Right. There's a lot throughout the real estate transaction process that can come up. Right, that pose as a potential challenge or barrier to getting the deal done, and you need somebody that's going to be creative and look at all aspects, all types of programs, and let's be honest, let's get it done. Right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the myths that you found working with people as they're looking toward financing? What are some of the myths in the mortgage industry that you have to dispel for clients?
I think that's half the job almost, because the preconceived notions that come along with buying a home, especially for first-time home buyers, but it's almost worse with residual buyers, because they're like, oh yeah, I already bought a house. I know everything about mortgages.
Okay.
And so the need to get pre-approved and to show all the documents in advance and to map it all out is kind of like, no, we've done this. We know what we're doing. But I think overall, like the misconceptions, I think in Greatfold are, yeah, I have a pre-approval. And as much as just checking that box, like, yeah, I did it. I have this piece of paper. Not all pre-approvals are the same. And I don't care what bank it's with. It's the loan officer. It's not the bank. It's the surgeon that does the surgery, right? So I feel like a lot of times when someone's just like, yeah, I got a pre-approval. Well, who's your loan officer? What bank are you with? I'm not sure, but I have a pre-approval. Like, that's a misconception, and I don't think people realize the importance of really getting the pre-approval done correctly and strongly, where the lender is really integrating with the buying process.
Sure. So let's delve into that a little bit.
Sure.
To having a proper pre-approval, because I mean, if you're looking for a home and you're ready to roll, right?
Right.
You're ready to get out there, and when you have that piece of paper, so to speak, you think that you're gold. What are some of the things that could make or break on whether a pre-approval is, I don't want to use the term valid, but let's say strong?
Yeah. So I think from an outside perspective, it's really hard to know. Like, tell me I'm wrong. As an agent, you have a stack of pre-approvals that are offers coming in for a property.
Right.
Which is the good one? Maybe they're all good. Maybe they're all just kind of where the lender just was like, yeah, we ran the credit, they're fine. But meanwhile, they turned out to be self-employed and they never looked at the paperwork. So like, what is the best pre-approval? And so for me, I think it's really a strategy. And like, as much as the loan itself later is the product that I provide for my customer, I look at the pre-approval as almost the greater product. Because if we can't compellingly evidence to the seller that our buyer is really fully vetted, then we're not going to get a contract or a house. So who cares about the mortgage that comes later?
Sure.
So with the challenging market that we're in for buyers, for me, I go above and beyond. And the goal of this podcast is not to tout that or flaunt it, but it is to show that I have a lot of success where I put a 4 or 5 page presentation talking about my buyer's employment. And, even if we're just putting down 5%, how they have an extra $100,000 in their 401k, the details that don't show in the pre-approval letter still should be presented to the seller, right? Because I think that that's like going out on a date. Like, we want to put on our best. We may not necessarily marry that day, but I want you to know it. You know what I mean?
So you are big on making sure that the seller gets to see the full story of
100%.
Behind the pre-approval. That's something that I don't know that we've heard up to this point. And you said that you actually put together a document that will map all that out for the seller.
My strategy is threefold on an offer, and it really works. I've had agents that say, Greg, I've never seen this. I want you to represent my buyers as a lender. Because again, it's not about the loan that comes later. It's about how are we getting this client into a contract. So
Sure.
It's like my secret weapon, but I can't imagine loan officers are sitting here watching me, and I don't care. Like most people, you show them the water and they don't drink it anyway.
Fair enough.
So here's what I do. I put a whole packet together where it's not going to be generic. If I put something universal for every property out there, I don't think that seller is going to feel the love. I want them to know that we put this together specifically for their offer,
Sure.
right? So the first page is a picture of their house and their address on it. And then the second page is, in like a little table of contents, like what's on each page. Second page is the pre-approval. Then a third page is a letter from me where I go over the essentials, like exactly what are their credit scores. The pre-approval letter usually doesn't show that. What's their debt ratio? How much are we sitting on in the bank, even if we're not putting all of that down? And in some instances, these aren't really brag-worthy points. So like I kind of pick and choose what I think would present well. And then ultimately the last page, if I have it, which usually I do, is a pre-commitment where I show all the information to the bank and they actually give us a commitment. So now the seller knows that the bank's already looked at it. It's not just a loan officer being like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, on any given deal, things could be very noisy, right? You've got multiple offers in. You've got scenarios, and I think that takes away some of the guesswork, right? And
100%.
that may be the differentiator between yourself and the 5 other offers that are coming in for the similar amounts, right? So, because at the end of the day, you could have 5 offers for similar amounts or within a reasonable range. And
Exactly.
and going for the highest bidder is not, you could spend a lot of time and the deal falls through. And then guess what? Buyer A, who was the best fit based upon the criteria that you would have presented, has now already found their home and they're gone. Right?
Exactly.
So I definitely see some value in that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. If I could just quickly touch.
Please.
So that was part one. the pre-approval letter, 4 or 5 pages. Part 2 is I'll call the listing agent. And I'll be like, hey, just want to make sure you got that packet that I put together. Because I really believe in this buyer. I wouldn't have done that if I didn't.
Right.
And then the listing agent will be like, oh, I did or I didn't. And I'll make them pull it up on email. I'll go over it with them. And then I'll be like, listen, I'm sure you feel like this is at least a worthy buyer. Again, we just went over it, right? Where do we need to be number-wise? And that's part 2, where like a lot of times they won't even tell you as the agent. But they'll be like, listen, like I kind of like this buyer. Can they come up 5, 10, 20, whatever? At least then we're like getting the spotlight. And then the last thing is, and I do this before I call the agent, I'll make a video on YouTube where I'll just introduce myself, talk about the buyer. Same thing as that letter that I put together, but I do it on YouTube. If my client has an 800 FICO and they're not contingent on a sale, I won't do that.
Sure.
But if it's a 3.5 down, FHA, perhaps we have other offers that are going to be stronger. That's where I do that. And I've beaten out those other offers because the agents are just like, this guy did the work.
So you're leveraging digital platforms to help solidify the deal. And also it seems like you're taking a real position, which I mean, we promote pretty heavily here, on the program, is that to build a team around you that are going to be more than just, pushing a pen to paper, moving paperwork along, but being an advocate for you. And it seems like you've kind of embraced that advocacy in your role as a mortgage professional.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I agree. And as much as I look at my client as the client, like the human being, the client really is the transaction itself. Like we need to keep that going in the sense that we know it can close. So that's where when I even speak with a client for the first time, like they're on my conveyor belt. And if they end up where they can get a loan, they're going to stay on there. And I'm going to want to champion them and see them close.
Sure.
If they're worthy, it'll happen. We just have to, again, present it the best way possible and leverage it as best we can. And, sometimes we won't get it. But, again, depending on who the agent is and what the other offers are and how we position it, sometimes they're like, wow, it's already approved with the bank. Like, why would we not?
Sure. Sounds like the way that you conduct business leads you to some pretty rewarding wins. I know, I speak for myself, everybody here at Dream Select, as well as, all the professionals that we talk with. You had said it earlier about, it's really about working with people and helping them to achieve their goals. What are some of the wins that stick out for you that, that help you to sleep well at night?
Yeah. Isn't that what we work hard for, right?
It is.
Because otherwise it's a lot of challenges. I remember a few instances where they were ready to accept a cash offer. And again, they said, can you come up a little bit? And even with buyers that, like, I've had agents turn down the buyers that I'm thinking of, they turned them down. Like, they were like, I don't want to work with this buyer. I don't think they're going to be successful with a 3.5% down payment where the seller will allow them to include the closing costs. That's a seller concession for our audience. Sure. So yeah. And then meanwhile, we ended up getting an agent who believed in them and we beat out other offers. And again, when it's a cash offer, that's where you're like, wow, we rock. Like, how do we just do that?
Right.
We put an FHA buyer who needs a seller concession in contract. And then the agent ended up working with me over time. Like she really felt what I did. And that's not in the rule book, or you don't learn that in mortgage school. There is no mortgage school.
Yeah, I think to achieve that, you've got to really care. You've got to position strength, right? And also, as the mortgage professional, you have to make sure that if you're taking that step forward, that you feel strongly that everything's going to go the way that you. Right. Yeah, because that's not only your responsibility to your client, but that's also how you keep your reputation of like, hey, I could, when Greg says this is a good one, it's going to be a good one, right?
No, that's a great point though. Like there comes a point where like, you have your client and you're training for the Olympics or whatever, but then they get into contract and there I am on the high board being like, all right, now it's my turn to do this. Like now it's game time. So yeah, the pressure's on me then, where everybody said, okay, Greg, like they qualify, we'll give them the house, but then it can be a little nerve-wracking. I'm not sure if that spoke to your point.
No, it's great. Let's pivot a bit to the current market conditions now. What are you seeing out there today in today's mortgage market?
I think that it's where the rates being on the higher side, and the prices being on the higher side, increasing over the last few years even, it's where not everyone's qualifying for a home. Not everybody makes the income previously they could have. But I've been in the industry long enough where I look at it as it's cyclical. It will always fix itself. Like nature, you burn a forest down and it comes back even stronger.
That's right.
I remember in 2008, 2009, when they were misappropriating loans and everything crashed. That's not this. They're not doing wrong things. It's just a market that has flourished, and now it's slowing down a little bit. I think it's overall where. Tell me, has there ever been a year where no one bought a house or refinanced the house?
No, transactions happen all year, every year.
That's just it. So perhaps it's a little bit less of people where they're like, I want to buy a house, and now it's more of people where it's like, I need to buy a house. Necessity, yes. Yeah, but I think it's really dials down to the numbers. I mean, if you want to move and the payment works and you have enough money to close, then life, it's a 30-year mortgage. Like, you do it. I think the numbers really should drive the decision-making engine for a lot of people.
How do you set the proper expectations within the current market as to what people can afford to buy?
It's hard to set expectations because everyone's different. I think it's based on their own parameters. So what I'll say to a customer, even first interview, is, hey, we're here to follow your lead. What kind of payment do you think you can handle? And how much money do you think you can come up with for down payment and closing costs? So then we have to take their answer. And then we have to take reality when we go and look at what the prices are and all that, and kind of bridge them and figure out solutions. So if someone wants to be at $4,000 a month, and the houses that are in the areas they're looking at are $6,000 a month, what can we do? Right. And the answer sometimes is, hey, it has a basement apartment. You can get $2,500 a month from that, and that'll bridge that gap. So there are solutions. But yeah, for each person, it's a little different.
Are you a homeowner who is looking to expand your home so you have enough space for everything you need in your home? Or do you want to renovate because the interior just doesn't work for your needs anymore? Or are you someone who's looking for a property, but nothing that you've been looking at really fits what you need? Well, my name is Catherine Serrano Sosa. I'm the founder of Rooted Architecture Studio, and I can help you bring those renovations and adjustments to life. At Rooted Architecture Studio, we focus on creating meaningful, inclusive, client-centric designs for homeowners and investors. We walk you through the whole process of designing construction and making sure that you understand what's going on, but take away all the layers so you can sit back and just focus on the deliverables of what we're designing. We make sure that your non-negotiables are integrated and your wants and needs are integrated to the best of our abilities. So if you are looking to do anything that I just discussed, or just have ideas that you might want to talk about what the possibilities may be, give us a call and reach out through social media as well, and we'll be happy to help you. And if you're looking for a new property, make sure to connect with Dream Select Realty. They're the right people to help you find the right property for you and make sure that your needs are integrated. Or if we're renovating, we can all collaborate together to bring that vision to life.
Well, to your point, there's a lot of moving parts, right? And even the way that people make their income is different. Mm-hmm. W-2 employees versus, self-employed. Let's maybe touch on that a little bit. W-2, it's a little more, would you say, cut and dry? It's income, debt to income ratio. What about on the self-employed side? What do you look for with those individuals?
Yeah, so self-employed can be tricky. The answer 100% of the time is, I need to look at your documents. Typically we'll look at the last in some instances we'll look at the last 1 year of tax returns. And I think what all too commonly business owners are familiar with their gross sales. It's like, yeah, I sold $1 million worth of whatever last year. But what we look at as a lender is and of course you know this, but is the bottom line after all the deductions and write-offs and so forth. So sometimes people don't realize they're only showing $30,000, $40,000 a year in income. Right. But for every problem, there's a solution. There are programs that accommodate self-employed people. There's also things that we can suggest that they do to make it work, which I won't talk about on this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, if you felt inclined to do so, that would be okay. But for somebody who's looking, whether it's for a first time, and maybe two different answers, but for the first time, or either they're looking to sell and they've been through the mortgage process, but not recently. Yeah. How would you say they should prepare to start the process?
Sure. I think it all starts with the loan officer. The fun part is always looking at the houses. I mean, that's what we're really paying for. So that's like the thing. But, I think sometimes people shy away from the scary stuff, the pre-approval,
Right.
running credit, this and that.
You find people reluctant to get the pre-approval?
It's different strokes, different folks. But I think sometimes when people are reluctant to have a lender look at it, sometimes it's just where they are naive, forgive the term.
No,
and
sure.
sometimes it's where they know that their stuff looks messed up and they just don't want to hear it, and they'd rather go out and look at the pretty houses with the realtor.
Well, that's interesting. And from a realtor perspective, look, everybody wants to make the right use of their time. I think about my wife, and when she wants something, she gets excited about it. But getting the hopes up without knowing the real deal as to what you can do, that's a recipe for disappointment. Right. So, I think we would all recommend get the pre-approval. And a lot of times too, would you say that the buyer goes in? The buyer goes in with maybe preconceived anxieties that can easily be mitigated when you start laying out the options?
Oh yeah, when I think about any kind of process, if I know that it can be vetted up front, where they can look at everything and it's going to be smooth and easy, in my opinion, that's great, because then the pressure's off me. Like, I already did my job. Now I just have to find a house. You know what I mean? And granted, for some people, it's not going to work, and they have to work on stuff. But you're better to know it than not, And that's, again, one of the misconceptions. I don't think that the industry really pushes it hard enough on the public, where it's like, you need to really get pre-approved before you look at anything. Sure. I have clients where they'll be like, listen, I don't want to get pre-approved until I find the house that I like. Where in that is the word pre appearing?
That is why the term cart before the horse was created.
Right. The word pre is right there. Pre with a hyphen. That means before.
Right.
So, and that's a conversation that I'll have with customers. And different strokes, different folks. Some people are like, listen, that's just how I want to do it.
And so often you don't know what you don't know, right? Which is cliche on its own. But talking with a professional like yourself, it may not even be a difference between, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, approval or not. It may be the difference between, taking a few extra steps and then getting a much better deal or a much better maybe product.
Right.
Right. But if you don't know and you just jump in, you may be ready to go. You may be 3-4 months away with a couple little tweaks, but that's why working with a professional is probably as important, if not more important than ever.
100%. There's so many different shapes and sizes of it, of just being ready for the home buying process through the pre-approval. But like, I have a client where there's a dispute, where they are contesting a charge-off that's showing on their credit. Once that comes off, their scores are going to drop. And meanwhile, they have to go through that process of removing the dispute.
Right.
The scores will drop. And once the scores come back up again, then they'll be qualified. And that's just the kind of thing where, like, you have to know that a few months ahead of time to be ready. So it's just where, I think people don't know what they don't know until you just have someone look at it.
Right, and that's why taking the right steps today. It's so true in every area of your life, whether it's health, whether it's finance. It's very hard to just show up to the party and make it happen. Some people are perfectly ready to do that.
Right.
But for a large percentage of the population, there's pre-hyphenated like work that needs to get done. So we've covered a few things here for sure. In terms of the relationship between you and the realtor, why is that important? You touched on that a little bit before about how the communication across the board is important. Maybe delve into that for a minute or so.
I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I think that from the customer's vantage point, there is no official barrier between what this person does and that person does. So if the transaction goes well, great. I had a good home buying experience, I would refer all my professionals, and that's part of what we strive for, is to do a good enough job where someone thinks of us later on and refers friends and family. But if someone messes it up, I don't think they really care who messed it up. And so to your point, I think if we can create a seamless interaction with almost like a rhythm, where for every customer we touch, we set proper expectations and we get all the documents and the realtor knows what the lender's doing and vice versa, it's really where the client's looking for that. Like, that's why they look at reviews online and so forth. But if we have 5 stars over here and 5 stars over here and there's no relationship, this agent might do things differently with their lenders. And now when they work with me, it's just different. So that's why I try to have that rhythm.
Yeah, that's where I think transparency, communication is huge. So just come to the table, bring everything that you got, because I'm sure over the years you've seen, nobody's seen it all per se, but you've probably come pretty close. You've seen the situation that they're in, and it sounds like you can deliver some solutions, tailored to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you think you've seen it all, you haven't. But I agree with you. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we close here, give a little bit of perspective on, and maybe at this point, I think we've got a good sense, but a recap of what separates you, and what buyers should look for in a mortgage professional.
Cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think the reason people work with me is because of me. And I think beyond that, they stay with me because of my rates and my program and my banks. Like, there's nothing that I think that my bank does that would adversely affect someone's desire to work with me. And that's why I hang my hat there. I've worked at a lot of banks, brokers, different places. And so I just like where I work. But I think overall, people work with me because I'm available all the time. I do a lot of hand holding. I set a lot of expectation. I talk a lot. But at the same time, like, it's when someone turns around later and they're like, you didn't tell me that. That's when it's a problem. So I really try to give people a full curriculum just in terms of what they need to know to make good
Nobody
decisions.
wants to be in the dark, especially when you're talking about something as important as the purchase of a home.
100%. Usually when a client's referred to me because they were with another bank and it wasn't going so well, a lot of times it's just because they didn't like their lender. Like, they just didn't feel like they were being either respected or counseled correctly. And it had nothing to do with the bank at all. It was just that loan officer. So I think that's a big thing, where it's just about conducting myself in a way where, like, how would I want to be treated, especially if I've never done this before or whatever.
That's good policy in any arena, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Oh, likewise. Thank you.
What is the best way to get in touch with you?
There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's with me. Right. I mean, you can text me, call me 7 days a week. My number, 516-698-0626. That's my cell. Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Awesome. Well, Greg Nouza of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Jason.
And thank you for watching as well. You have been watching the Dream is Real podcast. Remember, if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in New York real estate, keep coming back here. We're going to bring you great professionals like Greg. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We're going to continue, again, to bring great content, and we will see you next time.